Well, everyone, I say we go ahead and get started. Well, this is Jeff Staats here, tech guy at Mar-Hy. We are going to be doing the Daikin One Plus thermostat, which from now on I'm going to refer to it as the Daikin One. P1, P2 or the S21 connection. All right, Daikin One Plus. Let's go ahead and get started. So, a new Daikin One Plus, premium control with optimum comfort, easy to use, energy efficient, reliable, and ensures that if the system is set up properly, it actually scrolls you through each step so there is no confusion. Designed to regulate and communicate with our HVAC equipment, and we can do this remotely with our Daikin One Home app, which we'll need for a number of other reasons. We will go through that as we proceed. So the Daikin Plus One interface. Thermostat has a physical dial on the right-hand side. That is an override temp. So whatever your current set points are, if you just want to raise it up or lower it a couple degrees, clockwise would be to increase temp, counterclockwise to decrease temp. We've got the high resolution touch screen on the left side, which is all we have to do is touch the screen to go to any of the other features that are on the bottom of that screen, which we'll go through all of that as we proceed here. Configurations. All right, for the Daikin One with the S21 indoor units. Well, this will give us communication when combined with the single or multi-zone split systems using the S21 connection on the indoor units, which will have its own wired S21 cable. It's a cloud-connected hub for controlling, communicating with the HVAC system. So the units for our single and multi-zone splits would be our basic indoor units, our wall heads, our floor units, most of which the CDXSs, CTXS, FDXS, FTX, FTXG, FTXR, FTXS. Pretty much most of our residential line has the ability to be connected, short of the 17 SEER, which nothing connects to that. Okay, so our basic indoor units. So it is not, the Daikin One is not compatible with the handheld remote. So you're going to, that's going to be obsolete once you tie in the Daikin One. And the FTXs, the 9s through 12s, are going to require the KRP67 interface. For the FTX 15 through 24s, that will require the KRP 980. So remember, any of the FTXs will incorporate another interface, something more you need to hide. For the P1, P2 units, as you can see with the P1, P2, that encompasses most of the VRV indoor equipment. As you can see, we have 13 different indoor units that are compatible with this thermostat, as well as the Sky Air and the 2 units currently for the residential application, the FDMQ Slim Duct and the FFQ Cassette. Both of those units require the P1, P2 connection on the indoor units. This little presentation here is basically to show you that in a commercial application, if we were connected to VRV equipment, be it VRV full-blown commercial or the VRV 4S, we can daisy chain up to 16 units, 16 indoor units to this Daikin One. Kind of handy. Installing the Daikin One. All right, so this is what comes in our packaging. So we've got the quick reference cards, which basically tells you how to mount everything. You get the Daikin One thermostat. We got what we call the translator. That's the interface that comes with it that has the power cable already attached. We've got the double-sided adhesive tape, mounting screws, the thermostat terminal plate, which I would call the sub-base. We've got the S21 cable, which there again, if we are doing P1, P2 connections, we will discard that cable. And then the optional trim plate, if you got a giant hole you're trying to cover up. The quick reference card basically sets you up so you can do a quick install. It doesn't give you a lot of information. There again, for most of the info that you will probably need, you will go to our website and we'll give you direction to either our YouTube page or we will have something that will be a link to give you in-depth details on installation. Okay, wiring, pretty simple. Now, I've got a little bit of contradiction here, but bear with me. So here we are, the S21. The S21 cable actually plugs into the translator. It's 6 feet long, and that's the cable that will be tying to the indoor unit. So obviously we need to be fairly close to the indoor unit to make sure we can make our connections. You will then take your power wire, and it's 110 or 120. So line 1, line 2, and ground. There again, that's 5.5 feet tied to the indoor unit power supply. And then we will run a 18 gauge stat wire from the translator to the thermostat sub-base itself. And one thing I do like on these is they got the removable connectors for those of you with big fingers, and they're very little screws. It makes for a little easier connection when you can remove it from the translator, connect your wires, and then plug it back into the translator. So one of the contradictory things I'm seeing here is originally we were told that it was 18.4, stranded, non-shielded. But if you look down here, it says 18 gauge 4 conductor solid, non-shielded. That's something we need to rectify. We don't want to be hooking things up. Now, we were able to do solids on our old VRV thermostat. My guess is we're probably good being a solid strand. One thing I do want to avoid, don't do thermostat wires that have extra wires in them. Anything that is an extra wire in a harness is an antenna. We could get RF interference and who knows what other kind of interference as well. So we don't want spare wires. Okay, now that we've gone through that, we're going to do the setup configuration. This would apply to either the S21 or the P1, P2 connections. So it's a 5-step process, being communication, personalization, equipment setup, system optimization, and preferences. It is going to force us to go through each one of those, and then it will check them off as we finish them to continue on to the next one. Communication. This is where we're going to make our connections to our Wi-Fi. It's your basic things that you would do when you're getting connected to your Wi-Fi. Find it, find which router or which Wi-Fi you're using. Obviously, you will probably need to put in your password to make sure, and eventually we should get a connected sign when you go through that. Now, you do not have to use Wi-Fi, but if you don't, we're not going to get our updates, our over-the-air updates, which will come periodically with new features and things that are developed by Daikin, and it will send it over the Wi-Fi and it will automatically be updated. The auxiliary heat interlock, that function won't work because we are using the local weather station for the temperature adjustments. So we use, there again, some other thermostats do that feature where they use weather stations for current temp, and that does it as well. And date and time will have to be manually entered. There again, if you are connected to the Wi-Fi, it will do that automatically. Personalization. So basically your language, the large font selection, time and day, and if the Wi-Fi is connected, and then if it is, it'll do date and time automatically. We'll want to name this thermostat. You have several different options: main room, bedrooms, back room, this and that. You can even go to other and put in any name that you want. Now, as you can see, as you look at communication, we've been checked off. That means we've finished the communication side. So we will continue with personalization, and then when you are completed, hit the next step. It'll then take us to the equipment setup. Now, mind you, this here is for the S21 connection. It's going to, we're going to talk about the actual equipment itself. So we're going to go to equipment setup. It's going to bring us to the indoor and outdoor screen. We are going to highlight the indoor unit. It's going to ask us the model number. We're going to highlight the model number, and it'll give us a drop down of the available units applicable for the S21. We will then go ahead and choose which one we want, and then once we are done with choosing our unit, we will back up, highlight serial, and you can actually put the serial number of that indoor unit on this controller. Now, that doesn't do anything particular. It just gives you a quick place to go to find the serial number. Not bad. And then the unit type, once it knows what it is, it will display the unit type automatically, whether it's a wall mount, floor mount, ceiling mount, what have you. Then we will go back to our equipment setup, go to the outdoor unit, put in the model number of the outdoor unit, and there again, we can input the serial number just so we can have it available if we need it. All right, for the P1, P2, there's a few more things that need to be looked at here. So the equipment setup, indoor unit, we're going to hit the indoor unit. It's going to give us a drop down of all of the applicable indoor heads. Once we highlight that, it's going to ask us, okay, which size is it? Then we will go ahead, highlight that, and we will back up so we can go back to the serial number and input that if we want to. There again, it's not of any priority that the serial number is there. It's just for convenience for future use. There again, the indoor unit will be automatically ID'd. In this particular case, they're showing it as a concealed ducted unit. Back to equipment setup. If we have more than one indoor unit connected to a controller, we will have to ID each one of those units. So it's going to address a number, a unit 0 and a unit 1. Now remember, with Daikin, 0 is a number. So if you see 0, that means there's probably more than one. In this case, we've got 2 units hooked up. We need to be able to identify which unit is 0, which unit is 1. There again, just like what we used to do with the nav controller, we will go to the forced fan function. We will turn the fan on unit 0, and then we will be able to ID which indoor unit is 0. And there again, I always suggest that we take a Sharpie and on the inside of the cover or someplace concealed, write down unit number. So we don't have to guess on this later on. There again, it's going to give us the indoor model. We can put the serial number as needed. And then down at the bottom of that indoor unit, you can see it says ID units. So we can do that through the indoor unit 1, indoor 2 by the forced fan, and field settings. Those of you that are familiar with the P1, P2 connections on a nav controller, there's usually field settings that need to be made. At this time, we could go to field settings, and if we know what our field settings are, we can go ahead and go ahead and insert those as we move forward. As you look at field settings, you can see that it's 10-0-1, 10-1-2. You can see the format of how they laid out the field settings. There again, if there is no numbers, that's not applicable for that unit. Another feature they have when you go back to the equipment setup is it's when you hit next step, do you want to load residential field settings? Now they have some defaults already set up for residential field settings, like where do you want the sensor, this type of thing. Now mind you, this is the P1, P2. It's a little different than if we were doing the S21 residential stuff. There again, we can go in, load residential fittings, settings. You say, yep, load them up. You will not see this function on an S21 connection. It will only be on the P1, P2 side of the thermostat. And there again, we're showing what the field settings would look like once you go from equipment setup, indoor unit, hit indoor unit, go to field settings, and we can see in this particular case, mode 20. So 20-0-01, 20-1-02, and 20-2-01. So as you can see, our field settings are a little different than we used to be, than we are with the nav controller, but it's pretty simple. As long as you know what them field setting means, and I'm hoping everybody, all of you out there, have the list of field settings. And if not, get a hold of me and I will send you a set of field settings. Now there again, it says unit number 1. So if I see a unit number 1, that tells me I must have 2 units on the same thermostat. And there again, if they're the same unit, you can just put in one set of field settings and, well, no, you technically got to go back to 1, put in the field settings, then go back to 0 and put in the field settings individually, because it breaks the units down individually and not as a group. Now, I don't see that application happening much. Commercial-wise, yes. Residentially, not so much. Okay, outdoor unit setup. We're going to go and pick our outdoor unit for our, now this is for the P1, P2, or the S21. Go through and make your selections. Do your serial numbers if you deem it convenient for you. And now we're going to look at that auxiliary heat function. That was what the auxiliary switches in that thermostat was on that subbase. So what this is basically for, if we wanted to hook up baseboard heat or a boiler or slab heat or even conventional forced air systems as a backup, we could incorporate this into the thermostat setup. And how we would do that is we would go to the equipment setup, and we would go to Add Equipment. From the Add Equipment, we're going to pick our auxiliary heat source. So basically right away it says, which connection are we going to use? aux1 or aux2. We had two choices. We have two set of contacts on that subbase. And then after that, we'll go back through the heat pump is our primary heat source, or auxiliary is our primary heat source. Well, obviously, everybody, heat pump needs to be our primary heat source. That's going to be the least expensive way to heat anything. So keep it as the heat pump is the primary heat source. I don't know of really any application that we would want to use the auxiliary as the primary heat source. We'll then highlight that as the auxiliary heat source, and we will then explain what that is going to be. Once you use the auxiliary heat source, we will go to Control. Now, mind you, when we scroll through some of these things, we got to back out to get to the main menu on what we're working on. So on Control, okay, are we going to want to use our heat pump lockout? No. That heat pump should run all the time. I mean, even if it's zero, we're still putting in heat. It's still cheaper than any auxiliary heat we're going to use. So I would always say the heat pump lockout is disabled. We will go to the auxiliary heat lockout and we will enable the auxiliary heat. And then we're going to set our temp on and temp off. That's what T on, T off means. And there right now it's currently set for a 3-degree temp on, -3, and a 1-degree temp off. Now I'll show you what that means here as we move forward. In this case, they're showing the enabling the heat pump lockout. I don't ever lock out my heat pump. If you put a check mark in the box, you are enabling that feature, and then you will go and have to set a temperature. In this particular application, they are setting the heat pump so anything below 15 degrees is locked out. The next screen will give us our auxiliary heat lockout. This we do want to be able to lock out. We will check the box to enable, and then we will set our auxiliary lockout where the auxiliary heat will not come on above this set point. In this particular example, they've got 50 degrees. That seems a bit high to me. I like mine in the 30s. So now this is an automatic feature. Once we enable all of this, it will happen automatically. So keep that in mind. So when we get done and we go back to Control, we're going to see that the heat pump was locked out at 15 degrees. Our auxiliary heat lockout is 50 degrees, so anything over 50 degrees, it'll be locked out. And then we've got our temp on and temp off differential. What that basically is saying is this is off of your current set point. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We're still in the Add Equipment. We're in our aux heat. We've done our connection. We've set our primary heat source. We are now back to the auxiliary heat. So you've got to go forward and then you back up to get back to Add Equipment as you scroll through this. Now, I know it seems fairly complicated, but once you sit down with one of these the first time, just go through every function. Take a look. Go through every button, see what it says, see what it does, see if it applies to what you're doing. You will then notice most of what you'll see more functions with the P1, P2 connections than you will with the S21. Our control, we've already done heat pump lockout, we've done our auxiliary lockout. We're going to go to our T1, T2. Well, There again, it's showing us more of the lockout functions, which we've already done. I want to get to the T1, T2. So what we're looking at here is our T1, T2. What are our adjustments? In the heat pump lockout, we can do between minus 20 to 65 degrees. There again, I don't want to lock out my heat pump. The auxiliary heat lockout, we can do minus 10 to 75 degrees. There again, I like 30, 25 to 35 is normally a pretty good lockout. Remember what we're doing. This is the balance point. When do you need auxiliary heat with that heat pump versus your heat loss of the space? So when we look at the auxiliary heat demand, we have a differential of -7 to -3 in 1 degree increments. Default is 3 degrees. On our temperature off differential, it's 4 degrees with 1 degree increments. So let's look at this here so you can see what I'm talking about. Our set point, 70, 80, I don't care. Our heat pump is a 1 degree off, or 1 degree on, 1 degree off. So if it's 70, when it gets to 69, the heat pump will come on. The heat pump will turn off at 71. Now this is in line to what most thermostats do, plus or minus 1 degree. Now look at the auxiliary heater, our T on. So we go to our set point, let's say it's 70, and we've got this set for 7 degrees, which would be the max. That means at 63 degrees, it will bring on the auxiliary heat. And then when we get to within 4 degrees of set point, that will be our off. Now there again, we have some room of differential here. We can change that. In this case, it could be, there's 5 degrees they're showing. 5 degrees of offset from main set point, and we've got it turning off 3 degrees within set point. That is to make sure that we are just using that as an auxiliary and not the primary heat. So if we wanted to do with our P1, P2 with the auxiliary as the primary heat, there again, I don't see that as a function. But remember, those contacts in that subbase, they're just dry contacts. We could set that to do other things if you wanted to, maybe a damper control, or open your mind, think of things that might work if we were trying to just close a contact to run different types of controls, be it fresh air dampers, things such as that. Now here they're showing the auxiliary as the prime heat. There are some fixed functions when you do this. Mainly it would be our set point differential. As you can see, we've got -9, -7, 4, and -2. So them are fixed numbers. The auxiliary heat demand only gives you a maximum of 2. They are a fixed differential at 1 degree. Very similar to what the heat pump is already set for. 1 degree below set point turns it on. 1 degree above set point turns it off. When that auxiliary heat is used as the primary heat source. I don't see where we would use that function, but it's there. Now, once it sees that there is an auxiliary heat connected, you will see an emergency heat come up on the mode. Normally, you would not see that unless you tell it that you are using auxiliary heat, and then you will see that come up on the mode when we get to that point. This master controlled, It keeps asking you if you want to be the master controlled when you're on a P1, P2. There again, that only applies if we're doing VRV equipment. All right, we've checked off 3 of them now. We're down to system optimization, which will give us our optional test, our error history, which will log alerts and error codes. It'll give us the ability to calibrate humidity and temperature, and it will give us the status of indoor and outdoor units. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we go to optimization, error history. Let's hit that button. As we hit that button, it'll tell us the error history, well, since either the inception or since the last time you cleared history, which I always do suggest that when you are setting this up, go through the error history, and if there is anything on there, clear it, so you know you're starting with a clean slate. When you do see error history or error alerts, if it's white, it's not critical. If it's yellow, it is critical. Basically, critical means it's going to shut the system down. And then to clear history, all you got to do is go to the bottom and hit the clear history tab. Calibration. So if you're convinced that the display that you are seeing is off a temp, you can calibrate it up to plus or minus 7 degrees. But do make sure that you are using a precision instrument so that you know that your temperatures are accurate. If you're using the homeowner's alcohol thermometer, that may not be as calibrated as you might think. Even though, you know, if that's what makes the customer happy, hey, you might want to just do it. Sometimes the customer may be looking at that old thermostat of his or that old thermometer, and they will be convinced that that's the real temperature. Well, if that's the case, give it to them. As far as the humidity, we've got the ability to calibrate the humidity plus or minus 15%. There again, make sure you're using a precision instrument when you're trying to set up a calibration of the humidity. And you can make changes on what the display is showing. Pretty simple stuff. Status. So, this says it can be done on P1, P2, or S21. I have 3 of these hooked up, and I don't get near of this display. So, I don't know whether to tell you that you may or may not see all of these functions. It would be fantastic if they were there. That would probably do a little bit of diagnosis for us. As opposed to going out and checking the unit out, you could see what your degrees of EEV are, drain pumps, electric heaters. Now, mind you, a lot of this has to do with the P1, P2 connection with VRV. I do have S21s connected. You get very limited status. But, you know, hey, something's better than nothing. Preferences. There again, we've got a check mark all the way down. We've walked through each function, and it makes sure that we stay on task. Preferences. So there again, of the preferences, we're going to set our heat, cool, min, max, house settings, forced fan, dealer info, and reminders. We can go through each one of these. The heat, cool function, when you highlight that, that's going to be our min, max. There again, how far do you want this not to go? So we've got our heating set up to 90 and our cooling set up to 61. which seems a bit extreme for me. I think I'd be a little different, maybe 68 for cool and 80 for heat. Once we've done that, we'll back out, go to deadband and overcool. Deadband and overcool. So the deadband is just what it is. It's our deadband, our switchover point between heating and cooling. We can go as low as 2 degrees. So that's pretty good for Daikin. A 2-degree differential between heating and cooling. That to me is almost too close. We don't want to get into a situation where we're short cycling between heating and cooling. That's the whole idea behind a deadband. Give it a little bit of space before it has to go into one mode or the other. So defaults are 4 degrees. We've got an adjustment from 2 to 9, so you can set that up as you deem necessary. And then we've got the overcool feature, which is attached to the deadband overcool mode. The overcool mode has to do with dehumidifying. So we can set that up depending on your defaults of your deadband, because if you go to 2 on your deadband, you get a 0. You can't go any higher. If you go to 4, we can go up to 2. If you go to 5, we can do the max of 3. So what that basically says is we're going to set this at a 2-degree colder temp if we determine we need dehumidification. And this is all automatic once you set these functions up. Now there again, you can set your overcool on dehumidify to 0, and then you would not overcool at all. You can set up from, like it says, 1 to 3 degrees of the overcool function to control humidity. Heat-cool changeover setting. What this is, we've already did our differential. We know our differential is 4 degrees. The changeover setting is at what time do we want that to actually switch to a different mode, say from heating to cooling or cooling to heating. So we've got when we highlight our changeover settings, we got a start timer differential, force changeover differential, and a changeover timer. All right, so we've got a set point of, let's say 70 and 74. It was in the heating mode, all of a sudden it starts heating up. We know our differential was 74 degrees for cooling. So what happens is when it gets to 75 degrees, it says, uh-oh, we're going to have to swap modes. So at 75 degrees, it's going to start a timer. And within that 15 minutes, if we don't increase by any more temp, it will start the changeover function. It will bring on cooling. Now, if for some reason the temp continued to escalate beyond or before that 15 minutes, that would be our auto changeover mode. It would say, okay, we're going to ignore the timer. We've gone up 2 degrees. We are going to change modes, which we will see that here shortly. Dealer info. This is where everybody wants you dealers out there. This is where you're going to put your name or maybe your competitor's name. Who knows? But this is your name, your company name, phone number, email, even possibly your website, and then any messages that you want to put in there. Get a hold of me. If you have any issues, call me during maintenance. Little messages you can put in there. All right, so once you've got everything checked, now's the time to go back through, check your communication, see that everything is correct and complete. But basically, you wouldn't be checked off if it wasn't complete. But it doesn't hurt just to review what you've done. Personalization, equipment setup, optimization, and preferences. Once you've done that, you are ready to go through the complete setup. Once you hit that, it says all settings are complete, continue. So now you've got it all programmed. Let's take a look at the different functions that are available. When you go to this top right key, that's your menu. That's going to set you up with settings. And as you go through settings, there's your system mode, which would give you the heat, cool, auto, and off function. And if you've utilized the auxiliary heat, you will see an emergency heat function as well in that system modes. Displays basically tells you what you've preset already. The schedule, this is where you will go to set up your basic schedule. We've got the basic 4 functions, morning or wake, morning, return, and wake, morning, sleep, etc. Same functions that you are used to setting up. 7 day a week, whether you want it 5 and 2, 5, 1 and 1, you can set these up any way you want individually. That is your standard schedule setup. We've got our away zone. So the away zone is where we utilize the geofencing. So this means that you would definitely have to be tied in to your phone through the app, and you will set a radius so that when you are X amount of miles away from the house, it will go to the default offset modes. And there again, when you get within that radius, it will reinitiate your initial settings. Our comfort settings. This basically would be your humidity control. And then when you go to air quality, there's some features in there that tells you about what your indoor temp is, what your indoor humidity is, and what the outdoor air quality is. Kind of a nice function. There again, something that's incorporated with the Wi-Fi. And then configuration. This gives us a few more settings. You hit configuration, we get accounts, dealers, date and time, messages, system components, the home Wi-Fi connection, tell us what web we're connected to, and your dealer edits. Now, if for some reason we needed to go back to the very beginning of this initial setup, where we were telling it whether it was a P21 or whether if it was P1, P2, or an S21 connection, we would go to dealer edit, and that would take us back to the very initial setups. Now, if you need to do that, you will need to go to our function for the system components. You will highlight thermostat. You will get the last 4 characters of your web address will be the passcode to get back into the original setups. And that is all done through your dealer edit. So remember, if you need to change something off the initial settings, you will need to go to settings, configuration, dealer edit, and remember the last 4 digits of your web number, and input that for what you will see. You will input that number or those characters as they show on that web address, and then push done. And that will get you back into the initial setup of the equipment. This is where you would find your unitary single split S21 or the P1, P2 connections. Or this, if you did have VRV equipment, you can change the primary unit. So sometimes that may be applicable, being able to get back into this if we need to change, if we're a VRV system and we need to change the primary unit, the changeover unit. Homeowner navigation. All right, normal mode. This is basically what you will see. You can change the display to a digital clock, or you can do an analog clock. And then all you have to do is tap it, and it will give you your current display. One of the features that are pretty nice, just by tapping this, you'll get your current temperature. This is the temperature in the space. That is not your set point. There's our main menu bar. And if you just want to change mode, all you got to do is hit that little circle on the side of the temperature, and that will take you directly to mode, which this system is in the off mode. We will physically have to go to this mode and put it in auto or heat or cool, depending on what you're doing. And this particular display is our home mode. That is our home mode, as you see down in the bottom. The other good feature, if for some reason 68 was not enough, you just turn the dial. It's kind of a schedule override, let's call it. So if you've got your schedule set and you've got it set for 68 degrees and it's a bit chilly for you, turn that dial clockwise, bring it up a couple degrees. And what you would notice, if you are running on a current schedule, your basic schedule, it will put that schedule into pause mode. And you can set how long you want that override to last. So that override has the ability to be 1, 2, 4, 8. So 1, 2, 4, or 8 hours of override. Or there's one other one, the next offset function, which is very similar to what most other controls out there do, other third-party controls, where if you override or bump the temperature up, it will hold that temp till the next scheduled function. Well, there's something nice about this. It's adjustable, like I said, from 1, 2, 4, and 8 hours when you override, and then it will fall back to its original scheduled function. Everybody got that? Kind of a nice little function. I do like it. All right, adjust control. So when you're using your dial, here, first off, you can see we've gone to the auto mode. The adjustments are made. When you look at the thermostat, you can actually see what's happening. All right, we've got a blue snowflake. We're in the cooling mode. Are we physically cooling? Well, we can see we got an arrow going down in the blue. Well, that tells us our set point is the white line, and we are physically cooling. So it is going down, it's cooling down. In this particular case, we see that somebody turned the dial counterclockwise to drop the temp to 64 degrees. So we can change that temperature by rotating that dial to your desired temp. And that is this adjust control function. That's the first one, the circle. All right, so you can tell what function you're in off of your main display, whether it be cooling or heating, whether it is currently trying to cool down or heat up. If that was in the heat mode, we'd be red, and that would be a red arrow going in the upward direction. Now, when you look at your schedule bar on your off of your controller, and you hit the little square item here, that's your schedule. That will give you a 24-hour look at what is currently being on schedule. So from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., we're running this particular offset 64 to 68. From 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., I think yeah, 68 to 72, and then when we get 10 p.m. and beyond, we drop our temp 68 to 64. So we get a 24-hour period of what we're seeing for the schedule. Now, if you were using geofencing or any of them other functions, to change this schedule to on, you just tap schedule, and the screen will display with what do you want to do? Turn it off, turn it on. It will give you the ability to turn it off right from this screen. There again, y'all, nothing works better than just pushing buttons and seeing how it works. I learn more just by pushing buttons than I do any other thing. So give that on your first couple units. Go through them. Make changes. See what it does. And there again, once we've done our schedule, you will not set your schedule from this screen. You will go back to your main menu. You will go to configuration, and then we can change the schedule, and it will give us wake, sleep modes, and we can copy and paste every day. So basically, Monday through Friday, you'll highlight all those. You will copy and paste. You will go back to Saturday. You will set the schedule for Saturday and Sunday, and then you will copy Saturday to Sunday and paste. And that's a pretty quick, easy, seamless way to set up scheduling. The away mode. There again, the away mode is with your geofencing. This is looking at your radius from your home on when you get out of range, it will fall back to the offset points. In this particular case, we can see that it's 64 for heat, 72 for cool. You can actually go to these and bring these bars up off of this screen. Drop your temp down, increase your cooling up, so that when you leave your space, you can get it will know that you're out of range, and it will start the offset mode. Then once you drive back into that radius, it will start heating up or cooling down the system to match whatever your set point was. You will physically have to turn that function on. There again, when you hit right up here where it says away, when you're in this function, it will display this. Do you want it on? Do you want it off? When you turn it on, it does disable your schedule. So you have to remember, if you want to run a schedule and you want to do your away, it's got to be one or the other. So you will have to go back and if you turn this on, you will disable your schedule, just so you know. Air quality. So when you push that air quality button, the very bottom on the right, that symbol there, it will bring you up your indoor temp. It'll tell you your humidity is 63%. It'll tell you your filter's okay. I think the filtration is done through runtime from the initial setup. And then you can look at the outdoor air quality. In this particular case, it's good. It's 36. We can see that the outdoor temp is 84 and the outdoor humidity is 87. Well, we know that's not here, right? Another function is our fan settings. When you go to this symbol, this is the air quality. We can go through it. This is where we're going to set up our cooling fan speeds. In this case, it's medium high. This is where we will set up our louver positionings for our wall units. There again, it gives you the cooling availability with these functions and the heating. So you can set heating and cooling up individually. And then you can even check your draft protection, which there again would be your cassette units or your units with the intelligent eye, you know, the draft protection where it tries not to blow on you, that kind of function. Only if it is available. You will see draft protection come up, but if it's a ducted unit, obviously that function doesn't work. Other settings, when you go through main menu, hit your settings. There again, we can see all of the other functions, and these are obviously meant to be available for the homeowner to come in and set their schedule, displays, the away temperatures, your comfort, your humidity set points, all of that good stuff. When you see an error, when you are connected to Wi-Fi, you can have those errors go to your phone. And then either contact your dealer or restart the system. If you restart the system, obviously if it's a critical error, it's not going to restart. It's probably just going to populate another fan error code or whatever the code may be. Messaging. There again, you can confirm messaging, and there are basically 4 types of messages: a status, an alert, reminders, and learn more. Anytime you're in one of these functions, there's always going to be a learn more tab. If you're not convinced you know everything that there was to know, hit that learn more. It'll give you step-by-step functions for that mode or that function that you're looking at. So alerts have priority over all other messaging. So if you're in a yellow fan alert mode, chances are you're going to keep that until you resolve the situation. Mobile apps. You are going to go to the Daikin One Home app. Download that and create an account. This is no different than any other account you create for apps. Same type. You're going to go through. You need to make sure that you do have a valid email address. You will be getting some codes through that email address as you start to get things set up with the account. Tap on the bottom. Let's create an account when you get on that website. And go through each one as you go through the passwords and emails. Now, I can tell y'all, I did this the other day, and I'm technically handicapped. It was easy. And if I can do it, anybody can. You're going to get a 6-digit account number that's going to come through your inbox of your email address. You're going to input that into the thermostat. It will then make and create your account. And at that time, you will be able to see the exact display that is on the thermostat. That's what you will see on your phone through that app. And this is basically it. As you can see, we've got all of our bottom features. Same thing on the phone. We can see that it's in the cool mode. We can see that it's physically cooling. We have an arrow dropping down to the blue and our main menu items. So we get basically everything that we see on the main thermostat, on the Daikin One, we will have available on the on that app through your phone. With that being said, I hope I gave you enough information to help you through this. Obviously, there is a lot that it will do, and there is no better training than just playing with it, having some time to go through each and every function and see how they function, see how they work, what is applicable. We've had one in action now about 3 or 4 weeks. I come up and play with it often in case, just to make sure I stay up on what's happening and how it works. I have got 3 of these hooked up. I have all three tied into my app on the phone, and it works pretty well. I can tap any one, bring up all the functions, turn them all on at the same time. Now, mind you, can't do it all at once. You have to go to each and every unit. But it looks to be, and those of you that remember the old Envy, this beats the Envy up pretty good. This actually does use the sensors in the units, in the thermostats, and it gives us a 2-degree differential, a 2-degree deadband, which was the killer with the Envy. You never could get a deadband that was, 9-degree swing. But this really gets close. We can really keep a comfortable setting with this controller. So thank you all for coming. Obviously, there's more information. We've got our website. We have YouTube videos through Mar-Hy's YouTube channel. So thanks for coming, y'all. We'll see you.
And I will say, if anybody does want to use this live or want to swing by if they're in the area, we have a number of displays with these installed on equipment. So feel free to just touch base with us, and we'll give you a hands-on demo so you can kind of touch it and get a little bit of experience before you go into the homeowner's house. If anybody has any questions, just shoot me an email, and I'll send the recording of this out to everybody once we're done.
Adios.